You're watching Channel 4. As a mark of respect to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, we will now observe a minute's silence.
Good evening. You join us ahead of a national moment of reflection to remember the Queen at 8 o'clock. It will be observed across the UK, starting with the Prime Minister on the steps of Downing Street. Today, final preparations were made for the Queen's funeral tomorrow here at Westminster Abbey. Members of the public are already lining the Mall to secure prime position for the funeral procession. After tomorrow's service, the Queen's coffin will be taken from Westminster Abbey to Wellington Arch via the Mall and then on to Windsor Castle. Meanwhile, presidents, prime ministers and royalty from across the globe have arrived in Buckingham Palace this evening for a special reception hosted by the King. President Macron of France, Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada and President Biden of the United States are just some of the 500 dignitaries attending the event tonight, dressed in black as a mark of respect. This afternoon, President Biden paid his respects to the Queen at her lying in state in Westminster Hall. And he also signed the Book of Condolence at Lancaster House.
The Queen had us to the castle for tea and we were joking crimpets. She kept offering me more. I kept eating everything she put in front of me. But she was the same in person as her image.
Well, we're crossing live to Downing Street now, where any moment we expect the Prime Minister, Liz Truss, to emerge onto the steps of number 10. She met the King earlier today and she'll be joining in that moment of reflection as the rest of the nation is too. The Prime Minister and her husband ending the national moment of reflection from across the country to remember the Queen. Well, joining me now is Jonathan Rugman. Jonathan, tomorrow here at Westminster Abbey, one of the biggest ceremonial events, you can hear people clapping at the end of that moment of silence, one of the biggest ceremonial events the country has ever seen, unparalleled perhaps.
Yes, it's the biggest gathering of world leaders since the memorial service for Nelson Mandela in 2013. The service begins at 11 o'clock with over 140 Royal Navy sailors pulling a gun carriage, taking the coffin from Westminster Hall into the Abbey. At 11:55, the last post is sounded. There is then another national silence, this one lasting for 2 minutes, and that will be followed by a Queen playing by a piper playing a Scottish lament, which may be the most moving moment in the service. Then the state hearse wends its way quite slowly to St George's Chapel in Windsor for a service at 4 o'clock, attended by about 800 people, 2,000 at the Abbey before that. And then the Queen is finally laid to rest in the Abbey, in the chapel, alongside the Duke of Edinburgh in a private service for the family in the Royal Vaults.
Jonathan Rugman, thanks very much. Well, the queue to see the Queen lying in state is expected to close this evening. And you can see now some of the last people who have been able to pay their respects still in the queue now, progressing to Westminster Hall. And early tomorrow morning, the coffin will be taken to Westminster Abbey for the funeral. Tomorrow we'll have extensive coverage of the Queen's state funeral here at Westminster Abbey and all the day's other events at 1:20 and at 7 o'clock. Until then, from Channel 4 News, from the team here and across the country, a very good evening to you.
Facing a task that tests their physical and mental endurance, celebrity SAS Who Dares wins in an hour. Now on Channel 4, a little later than Build, The Secret World of Ice Cream.